We are going to call the meeting to order at 9:02 a.m. All trustees are present except for trustee Addison. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and can I get an approval of the agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, we have trustee Mendoza Torres motion to approve the agenda and trustee Candelaria Orr second the motion. No preferential. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And trustee Addison is absent. Okay. Do we have any public comment? No. Okay. Do I need to read this?
I would read it, yeah.
Okay. The public may address the board on any consent or non-agenda item pursuant to the Brown Act. During this period, the board cannot consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda. Time is limited to 3 minutes per person per item, 20 minutes per topic. And seeing no public comments, we will move on to our report and discussion items. So we will start with E1, state funding application update. Okay.
You guys have some facts that are in front of you also.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Yep. Perfect. Are you guys waiting for me?
Do you want to let her know that you,
Yeah, we have one trustee that's, I think, might be coming in right now.
can she hear us?
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry, I didn't know. You were kind of breaking up and I wasn't sure if I was good to go.
I was just going to get started.
I think it's okay if you just go ahead and get started.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Well, it's good to be here. Hello, everybody. I'm thrilled
Good
to
morning.
share some great news with you. Let me start presenting my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. So really quickly, initially, I just wanted to give you an update of where we're at with all of your funding applications and your state funding that we've gotten you in line for. And then I'll pivot back to the most important matter at hand, which is your pre-K, TK, full day kinder funding application. So let me just blow this up a little bit. As you know, when we came on board, we got you in line immediately for the Washington Middle multipurpose room modernization, Jefferson Elementary, a modernization application and a new construction application, a new gymnasium, minimum essential facilities at Washington Middle, and then we also submitted in the competitive program an application for pre-K, TK, full day kinder, and that application is successful. And we are expecting a funded apportionment at the September 23rd, I believe, board meeting. And we'll keep you posted on that as it progresses. So along with these applications in your district dashboard, you have the date that the application was submitted, the status, the estimated state funding. For your pre-K, TK, full day kinder application, you've also been awarded financial hardship status, which is kind of a one-time award for you. When you submit your application for that competitive program, they request all of the district's financials to determine how much of your match for that application you actually have cash on hand. and they determined that you don't have enough cash for your match. So you are awarded those priority points, and you will be awarded a financial hardship amount. These are our estimates right now, so $5.5 million in state funding, and then we're thinking about another $1.3 million in financial hardship funding for that project, and then you will supplement that with the cash that you have on hand to complete the project. So I'll talk more about that application in a minute, but in sum total, if you go to your cash flow, you're looking at the following cash flows. So we're estimating around $6.8 million that will be released. You will immediately get a fund release for 40% of the base grant amount in September when you're awarded for your pre-K, TK, full-day kinder application. And then the remainder you'll get when you submit your CDE and DSA approvals. So this money will actually come to you in 2023 and then in 2024. The Washington Multipurpose Room, they are processing applications really quickly at the state. So we're expecting you'll get another $1.6 million for that application next year when it's picked up and processed. And then in 2025, for the Jefferson new construction application and the Washington minimum essential facilities application and the Jefferson mod application, a little over another $8 million year after next. Now, it's important to note that the Jefferson new construction and the Washington minimum essential facilities require that you have new construction eligibility when the application is picked up for processing. And we are running that new construction eligibility every year for you. You do have funding right now available at the K6 and non-severe level, and a little over $3 million, and we expect that will go up. So we are projecting that you will have the eligibility when those applications are picked up. So about $16.5 million in sum total in state funding. So you are to be commended for letting me do what I love to do to help support you getting funding to supplement all the community dollars that they've contributed for your projects. Even after all of those applications are picked up and funded, you'll still have almost $6.6 million in modernization eligibility split across your various sites that have to be used at that site. So $1.1 million at Jefferson Elementary, 1.6 at Washington Middle, $3.5 million at Cloverdale High, and almost $200,000 at the continuation school. If you spend down your local funds and you are qualified for financial hardship, then this is the district share portion of $4.39 million is what you would be awarded for projects at those sites once you've exhausted all of your local funds. In 2025, when your buildings turn over again at Jefferson Elementary, you'll have another $2.6 million in eligibility there. And then once that's done, you're not going to have any more mod eligibility for quite some time. So let me pivot back to the presentation and talk to you about the most urgent matter, which is the funding application eligibility and requests at Jefferson Elementary for 8 new Title V compliant classrooms. So again, this was a competitive program. We submitted the year prior, you were unsuccessful. We submitted this year, and Patty did a great job of providing all of the backup documentation needed. It is quite a significant amount of work. They want every contract that's been executed. They want every purchase order. They want all the payment history going back for years. But you were approved. We did receive your financial hardship approval letter, and you received those priority points, so you will be funded. So for this program, we did request 8 classrooms. Now, this program is different than the modernization and the new construction in that you can either demolish portables and build new, Title V compliant classrooms, or you can just build new classrooms. What you can't do with your application is rehab existing classrooms. So that's not an opportunity. The classrooms must adhere to Title V requirements, meaning that they must be 1,350 square feet with dedicated restrooms, storage, teacher workrooms. It's inclusive of all of that square footage. And there's a lot of modular companies out there right now that are doing kind of pre-check buildings. In anticipation of this program, there was a lot of design going on. And there's some really neat options out there for these classrooms to go down fairly quickly. Title V issues that we've run into and why we would recommend bringing CDE in early, because remember, you need both Division of State Architect and California Department of Ed approval. Issues include parking lot drop-off pickup. So at Jefferson, that site's really constrained already. So they're going to be looking at how are these parents of 4-year-olds, are they dropping off their kids? Are they being escorted? If they're going to park and walk in, where are they parking? Access to the multi-purpose room, how far away are those kids or those classrooms that you're building from food service, so that in inclement weather, how are they going to eat? Are they going to eat in the classroom? Do they have covered areas to get to the MP room, et cetera? Playground visibility, for the teachers to have full visibility of the students when they're in the playground, and the playground needs to be separate from the upper grades, obviously. And so you're approved for 8 classrooms. You don't have to build all 8. You can reduce the application if you determine that you only need 4. We have provided your enrollment projection here that Rob prepared for you as part of your demographic analysis. And so that's something, if you want to explore, reducing the number or, doing a portion of the project now versus later, there will be another round of this funding, and you are welcome to apply in any round. The next round won't open until spring of 2025. And again, it's competitive, so there's no guarantee that you'll be funded again in a future round. Again, your qualification for financial hardship was successful, so that there's a 5.4 in state, about 3.2 in district share. That's the total project cost, but they did reduce it by what they saw as you having cash on hand to contribute for your portion. So we're looking at about 6.6 million from the state in total, and then you would contribute about $2 million to the project yourself. It is an aggressive timeline. So the state wants to see for this unfunded mandate, they want to see these classrooms go down really quickly. So once you receive your funded apportionment at that September board meeting, you only have 12 months to submit Division of State Architect and California Department of Education approval letters to the state. Right now, DSA is taking anywhere from, maybe 4 to 6 months, could be longer. So, sometimes design just by itself takes 6 to 9 months. So you're looking at really wanting to start this process as soon as possible to start determining what the scope of your project looks like. Because you have a tight budget, we would recommend, and I think I've talked to Kevin about this a little bit, maybe a design build team, someone to come in where an architect and a builder, they get together and you tell them what your budget is, and then they all, you get maybe 3 different proposals and they all propose a different scope of work. So once those DSA and CDE approval letters are submitted to the Office of Public School Construction by September 23rd, 2024, you again only have 12 months to complete construction. So from the submittal date of those letters, you have 12 months to have those classrooms completely constructed with your occupancy, notice of occupancy filed. So it is quite an aggressive timeline, and that being said, everyone in the state is on the same timeline. And we've seen projects get done within that timeline, and I'm confident that if anyone can do it, it's your construction management firm that you have, and we're here to kind of shepherd the funding application through. So I am happy to answer any questions you might have. I know that was a lot of information.
I have a quick question for you, Jamie. What if we don't want to build at Jefferson?
So if you didn't want to build at Jefferson, we could request that we could request a change of location, and potentially, the success of your application wasn't dependent on where the school was. If you had more than one elementary school, that would be different, because it is a site-specific application. But because you only have one elementary school, I think that they potentially would allow that. The question would be, where are you wanting to relocate it to? Is that site already CDE approved? If you wanted to put it, say, for example, at the middle school, then we would need OPSC and CDE approval. I mean, that you're talking about a short timeline already, so a relocation would just add to the timeline of everything that you need to get done.
Thank you.
So it's not out of the question, but it is dependent on where you want to move it and whether or not the state will approve that.
When is the process to do that?
the process to do that. So initially, we would want to have a conversation with the full day kinder, or PKTK full day kinder team at OPSC, and probably with John Gordon at CDE, and bring them into a meeting with district representative to have a conversation and put together a slide deck to show them, here's where the application was approved, here's where they want to relocate the project to, is this a viable option? And we can do that really quickly. If you have specific questions about a site that you want to move it to, I could respond to that. I know you have the Southfield property and you've already received a 4.0 from California Department of Education for that property. Unfortunately, I think that property is probably outside of the realm of possibility for this funding round, just because I spoke with Jennifer Schwinn at CDE. That property received a score of 1 out of 4, 4 being the highest, to locate a school at. It's next to and I can pull that 4.0 for you, I think. Let me share my screen really quickly.
A lot of those scores, like 25% of those scores are completely wrong based on the time that they were done. So it still has issues.
So
but
this
the
score was
will
given
change drastically.
June of last year.
Yeah, it wasn't
Yeah, so
based
this
on
card-
data from last year. It was based on data from like 4 years ago. If you go through the questions, a lot
No,
of
this would,
if that's what I read last week, a lot of the questions are just flat out answered wrong.
sorry, I spoke with Jennifer Schwinn at CDE. She visited the site with Betha last year, and she provided this based on her review of the site at the time. So if this is incorrect, then I'm happy to ask Jennifer Schwinn. We can absolutely meet to go over it with her to discuss her findings. And, you know, I wasn't there at the site visit, but I know that this is from Jennifer based on that. I know there were previous 4.0s that are different from this one. And I can resend this just to be sure, Preston, that you have the most recent one. So CDE site approval takes anywhere from 9 to 12 months with all the reports that you have to get. And, you know, they're gonna want a schematic for the site. They're gonna want a traffic study. They're gonna need a pipeline study done because there is a high pressure gas line nearby. She's questioning the electrical power lines that are down there. It's also next to a cannabis shop and a wine dispensary. I think she made some notes in here.
Right, it's wine storage, it's not.
Wine
so those were
storage
some
and
of
a cannabis
the- Yeah,
dispensary.
those were some of the questions that were wrong. It's a wine storage facility only.
Okay.
And then a lot of the access questions were incorrect. They should have looked at the plans that had been approved. So all the access issues have been almost entirely mitigated. Utilities
So
will be there. They weren't there at the time, but it's kind of dated. I'm just pointing that out so that everybody here knows that that score is not relevant because they weren't using relevant data of work that was in progress. But I don't think it helps our timeline really knowing that. If they were that far off and didn't look to permits that had already been pulled and things like that back then, I still don't think we have a timeline to address this, but the score is wrong.
I wasn't there at the site visit. I don't know if this is the one that you were looking at, Preston. I hope that it was the one that was dated from June of last year.
It was.
It is,
You know,
yeah, and I can go through and pick it apart, but I'm not sure that's useful time right now.
Right.
So I can
Yeah.
do that at a separate time, not to take everybody else's time up.
Yeah, sure.
I
And I'm
think,
happy to move the funding application forward however you'd like. I mean, if you'd like to me to schedule a meeting with Jennifer Schwinn and John Gordon and OPSC to determine if they would even allow you to relocate the classrooms to this site. And if they determine that it's feasible, if you get CDE site approval, then we can talk to them about potentially expediting a CDE site approval, for the project. Again, it really all depends on those state agencies and their timelines and what their workloads are as well. So I think relocating the project to the Southfield site, knowing that you have to get site approval and plan approval, is just giving you even a more aggressive timeline to get those things done.
I think at the Measure H committee meetings, we determined that there was 3 options: Jefferson, JEH site, and the Southfields. And correct me if I'm wrong, we determined that we did not want to have the Southfields as an option because it was just gonna have too much added expense to have it there. So I think Preston's just bringing up that as a point, but that was not something that the Measure H committee wanted to present to the board as a possibility. It would be at Jefferson or the possibility of JEH, but.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want the rest of the board to know that that score of 4
One.
looks, or 1, whatever it is, 1 out of 4, is that what it was? There's a lot of things that will change that score overnight, that they didn't investigate the permits that were in process, the plans that have improved, the streets and sidewalks that are literally going in right now. So just so you know that property isn't nearly as bad as that bad data makes it look.
Yeah, and I don't
But,
think, from CDE's perspective, they're not saying the property's bad. What she's saying is at that moment in time, when she visited the site, it wouldn't be considered ideal from CDE's perspective. But again, a lot's happened, it sounds like, since she's been there, and there are likely some reports that, she wasn't privy to. CDE, when they do the 4.0, it's kind of just their initial evaluation of the site, and then it's not to say that it can't be approved through CDE. It just, essentially what it's saying is, we need all of these things done in order to approve this site, as opposed to if she had shown up to a property that was already developed, already had utilities, already had egress and access, whatnot, then that may have scored higher. But it's not to say that this can't be or won't be ever approved by CDE. It's just saying that there's more work to be done.
Right, and that's
before
just what I want the
consider it.
board to realize,
Yeah.
that score is not reflective of what that property's real value is. But
No.
having sat on these construction committees for a quarter century now, they're, even with an expedited timeline, and that's why we talked about it last time, there's no way to get those approvals. Those approvals are gonna take years. There's no way to meet this timeline for that property, unfortunately.
For this project, yeah.
For this project, yeah. So if we wanna capture that money, I just think it's impossible to do it on that property.
This is exciting news, though, that we get all this funding. Thank you, Jamie.
Mhm. Absolutely.
I have a question about, can you hear me, Jamie?
Yeah.
I just have a question about, again, I'm just getting here, obviously, so it just seems like the timeline is very speedy when it comes to this. So I just want to caution against, are we just doing this to do it because the money's there, or are we actually, is it a part of our vision and our plan to really look at it? So where I'm headed with that is it possible that we, at the next round or funding or whatever it is, that we could put in and potentially get the same amount of money and the same stuff that you're talking about now? And I'd like to know what are our chances of that being able to happen. I'm just trying to lay everything out on the table.
No, I appreciate that. I'd say that with any competitive program, there's no guarantee that you'll ever get funded again. I mean, for this program in particular, there's 2 ways to receive priority points. One, the percent of students that are on free and reduced price meals district-wide has to be above 60%, and then it's a sliding scale all the way up to 100%. So right now you need free and reduced price meals about in the mid-80s to 90s to receive up to 40 priority points. And then the other priority points an application receives is because of their status of financial hardship. Now, normally for financial hardship, you have to re-up your eligibility every 6 months. So, as a district, you have developer fees coming in, you get money back from the state. And so they're looking at that when they qualify you for that program. And you have, as I just showed, pretty good amount of money coming next year and the year after. So I don't think you would qualify, given those applications that are in line, I don't think you would qualify for financial hardship in the next round in spring of 2025, knowing that it's likely right around that time they would say, hey, you've got, $8 million coming back from the state. If you don't get the financial hardship points, which I don't think you would in spring of 2025, then you likely wouldn't qualify for this funding again. As far as the need goes, I think, I can pull Rob in, he ran your demographics, but I know that with the implementation of universal transitional kindergarten, there's $15 billion of needs statewide, and they've thrown about $1 billion at it. So the need for classrooms for early childhood education, I think, is there, and I think it's there in your district if you're looking at what the state considers to be the appropriate educational environment for those kids, of 1,350 square feet with dedicated restrooms, versus what most districts right now are doing, which is 900 square foot, 900 square foot classroom without a dedicated restroom. So, ultimately, I'm not here to prioritize your capital facility projects, but I don't think it's likely that you would be successful in the next round. So I think that's important to keep in mind as you move forward with your decision.
Great, and my second question would be is since it's such an aggressive timeline, and, I don't have utmost confidence in DSA with their timelines, even if they say 6 to 8 months, that's like, their best case scenario, it seems like. So what realistically happens if we don't come within this timeline? What does that mean traditionally?
Yep, so you're never fully committed, first of all. So first of all, there's precedent. So there's another district in Southern California that just won an appeal to the state allocation board. So administratively, the Office of Public School Construction, based on the regulations, their hands are tied. They can't award you an extension. So if you get to August of next year and you don't have your approvals, they can't administratively give you an extra 60 days. But there was a district in Southern California, Livingston, like I said, that did their due diligence and they were moving forward and they didn't get their approval. And so they went to the state allocation board. I would take your application to the state allocation board. I would say they hired their design build team on this date. They got their design done. They submitted to DSA. DSA is moving very slowly. They do not have their approval. And then there's precedent for you getting an extension from the state allocation board for that. So I'm not worried about that. If it's you holding you back, if you take 6 months of that time to ponder over and ruminate about how what you want to do in the design, or if it's you stalling the process, there's less of an argument for an appeal. If it's a state agency that's stalling the process, then there is an argument for an appeal. Worst case scenario, you accept the money from the state for advanced design. You spend the money getting the design done. You decide as a district that you don't want to move forward with the project next year. Then you can do what's called a reduction to costs incurred, and you just reduce. They reduce the funds that were released by what you've spent, and then you send the rest back to the state. So there's really not risk from a delay perspective with state agencies.
And then, you're also looking at the timeline, just so we understand. You're looking at the timeline that today we're discussing it, right? And then we're looking at actual formal approval by the board. You said at the September meeting, not the August meeting. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, I spoke with Lindsay Walden, who's the head of the program at OPSC, and she said that it would go to the approvals are going to the September board, and that she can't put anything in writing, and that we'll know exactly who's getting funded, once the September board meeting agenda comes out. But every district that qualified for financial hardship in this round is getting funded, and we have your approval letter. So.
But would you want us to be able to approve it in August, or are you thinking September would still be enough, would still be plenty of time?
I think it depends. Kevin might speak to this. You could do something if you're concerned about whether or not, I mean, I have no concern. I know that they're gonna approve it in September, so I would be confident telling you to move forward with, your RFQ for proposals for a design build team or lease back, or however you wanna move forward with whatever delivery method. You could do something like a progressive design build, which gives you kind of an off-ramp in the event that, I mean, Kevin could probably speak to this more. I would get started right away. If it were me, and it was my personal project, I would already be designing the project just to give myself as much time as possible.
So I'm just asking that so you guys understand what, because the board ultimately makes the decision on whether or not we go forward or not.
I think that's why the Measure H committee wanted to have this meeting.
Absolutely.
To inform the board of what's happening so that we could potentially approve it sooner than later.
Yeah, because we were gonna, just speaking to the timeline, I mean, we've been talking about TK classroom locations for 3 years, and we've been working with Jamie for at least 2 years to get this all in place. So this has been a 2-year process to get this funding. It's been strategic, trying to get it done, even with all the transitions we've gone through. And
I do think-
we would have done the master plan meeting in February, except for the transitions that we were going through this year. So as a board, we're behind where we should be, but we needed to get to where we are today to be able to move it forward.
You can open that door.
Kevin, do you think what are your thoughts on the possibility of all this aligning and the moons all being in the same?
I think it's a piece of cake.
Okay,
We make a couple of major decisions. First of all, what site are you going to build on? Jefferson, JEH, or somewhere else? You need to know that. And what are you going to build? 1 classroom, 2 classrooms, etc. After that, it's a go. I've scheduled the 3 architects to come and visit next Tuesday. They've each got 20 minutes, so that's 3 of them top architects that Van Pelt's worked with. And then we can discuss later, if you like, my idea of a project delivery method too. The key thing here is modulars. If you don't go modulars, you will not make this schedule.
Which, to be clear, it's not portables. It's prefab modules. It's not stick-built, but it's way better than portable.
So we've just completed, what was that, 812 down at Old Adobe. The first 8 won the 2019 Best TK Award for North Bay. These are absolutely beautiful, stunning modulars. And I mentioned to you, Preston, Tuesday, you should go down and see them. You need to do a field trip, make these decisions, and be ready for September. We have some time. You can just mesh it the same as what Jamie was saying, September. But we need to do it now. And you need to make these 3 decisions. And it's not big decisions, pretty easy, right? But I think once you see these portables, and the particular ones that Van Pelt likes to build are with the clear story, so you have not a flat roof, you have an angled roof, and then you have glass all the way across the top. It's about $50 a square foot extra, but it's well worth it. Your teachers will love it. And right now, the cost per square foot are within reason. I think we could probably get a classroom around $500, $550 a square foot. So we're right there. So I think you could probably build, what's that, 8? You get 6 million, right, Jamie?
Yeah, you'll get about 6.6 million, almost 7 million probably from the state.
Right. So if you looked at 500 a classroom, and then obviously you got fees, soft costs for architects and CMs hopefully, and site work, right? So we have enough money, and I'm not concerned at all about the timeline, at all, right?
As long as we can make a decision and there's,
Well, that was Jamie's point. It's in our court to make the decisions, right? Or else it's not gonna work.
So just so you guys know, the idea behind this meeting was to have the discussion instead of having the discussion and voting the same meeting, right? That's a little pressure part. Is it possible to put up, and I don't know what the board's seen so far, is it possible to put up the two different thoughts of locations and what it looks like and things like that as well? Because I think that is helpful to see that visual also.
The JEH site versus Jefferson site.
Yeah, or just what are the possible things that we're looking at, right? We know that the south property, from what we're hearing, is out, right, because of the
timeline.
the timeline and getting it there. But, so what are the other possibilities that we're looking at so that so the board has some options to look at, to see?
and these are possibilities. I've been thinking about the JH option a lot, that site. And kind of the reason we went there is, I don't think you guys were here when this plan was thrown on the screen, but there was a plan that basically bulldozed all the fields at
Oh, we were here.
Jefferson. And,
Do you want me to share that, Preston? I
Sure,
apologize for
sure.
interrupting.
yeah, and it hadn't really been, like, whoever drew it hadn't really discussed
Yeah, I've
with
seen
us
that
what
one.
priorities and things were.
Yeah.
So here's a new one, and there's a lot, there's a lot of things that could still be moved around with this. But it is possible to fit on Jefferson. It is possible,
But pickup
There's
drop-off
challenges.
was an issue with this one.
yeah.
You can receive, so we're doing an exemption in Lemon Grove. They're doing an early childhood education. They also got awarded, they're doing 16 classrooms, and they're putting all of their kids in the district at the same site. And they have about the same size pickup and drop off, and we brought CDE in early. CDE understood the site constraints, but they also understood the importance of what the district was doing for their students and their community, and so they're giving them an exemption for the pickup drop off, and that's why we would want to kind of settle on one of these and then meet with CDE and with their architects and with your architect as well to figure out, it's not going to be perfect and meet Title V, but what can we do to make it as safe as possible?
And you had another option for here, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is the one where the field is
Yeah.
gone and would cause another.
This is more like that one we saw.
That was
Couple years ago,
that's
right?
what we were originally shown.
Yeah.
Yes. The previous one, Jamie scenario 1, we had even discussed if they could be pulled, I guess, west,
Uh-huh.
so that
This way?
you could have a one-way driveway, Preston can, where you could go on Jefferson Street, and then they would make a right-hand turn, and then go around the backside of the classroom.
Yeah, so you could put in a road through here, right turn, rather
Yeah,
than
like where
left
that
turn.
walkway is.
Come in, turn right, road through here. Yeah, you said the path's like 10 feet wide? Yeah. The gravel you put out there, which is about a lane already. And come back out here, another right turn. Just that,
Would help a lot.
just if we put that road through there, would completely transform
Yeah.
Jefferson drop-off. Because right now, it's all
It's,
a mess through here. And
They would
there's
let-
room,
I don't know,
there's
it's
room
in their
to
u-
move these down here and do
reconfigure
that.
it a little bit.
So there is room on that site. It's challenging and tight, but,
Did
and not affecting the field.
Jamie, I have a question. So I know we keep throwing the 8 out for classrooms, right? Is there a magical reason why there's 8 as opposed to 6 or
Yep.
7 or?
Yeah, so the way that your eligibility is calculated is they take your, the last, because universal TK isn't completely rolled out yet and won't be until fall of 2025, they take the average size of your first, second, and third grade cohort, and they use that as your projected TK enrollment, and then they take your kindergarten enrollment, and they combine those numbers, and then they divide it by 25, which is the state loadings factor for TK and K, and then they determine how many classrooms you have that you need that are Title V compliant. So they said you need 8 classrooms. So they see you needing space for 200 TK and K students combined. Then, once they have that need, they look at your existing campus and they say, okay, how many classrooms were originally constructed or have been modified to be Title V compliant? You have none, and they confirmed that. So they didn't reduce, normally if you had 2 there that were originally constructed as kindergarten, even if they were smaller and had a dedicated bathroom, they would reduce the number that you need by the number that you have. So you're eligible for all 8. It doesn't mean you have to build all 8, but you are eligible for all 8 classrooms.
And it looks like the overlay that you're showing there with the colors is there's currently portables that are there, right? What is the what's in the plan? Would those be destroyed? And then also, would the grant itself be able to cover the cost of, just demolition, basically?
Yeah, so demolition is an eligible expenditure. I mean,
Okay.
Kevin knows what it's gonna cost, I don't, but it is an eligible expenditure. And you don't have to, for this program, it's different for mod and new construction, but for this program, you can keep those portables. You can relocate them to another site, continue to use them. You can relocate them to a different area on this site and use them. The state does not care. And what's really nice about this program is that it matches, first of all, 75% to 25%. And then additionally, this doesn't impact your new construction eligibility or your modernization eligibility. So it's a really unique and wonderful program in that way, that you can still keep those portables. You can, you can't rehab them with this money, but you can, relocate them or demolish them with this money.
The other challenge here is housing, temporary housing. Because we're gonna have to house those students that are currently in the portables during construction and moving. So that's a further
Yeah,
look.
no,
What do
those
we
are
have
gone.
during the
That's an
school
old
year?
picture.
What do we have during the school year in those portables?
I'm sorry?
What do we have during the school year in those portables?
Currently, for this 2023-24 school year, we have SDC, SAI, TK, and.
Do you still have some K out there?
Teacher workroom, and then there's
Yeah, there's a
spaces
counseling.
that ACES uses after school, which would be relocated to other classrooms.
So no more kindergarten out there right now?
Yeah, they're in the main building, but we will have 3 TKs this year. And then the other space down below is the preschool.
The little
blue and yellow
triangle,
Right.
right, yeah,
corner.
Right here?
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And kind of why JH came up a little bit, one of the drivers was you wouldn't have housing for all those classrooms. You'd have to do housing for the JH classroom, but
Which is one
Building.
building. This is the JH site.
and this is a thought, but really none of those buildings are worth keeping in it. We really could look at that whole site as a blank canvas if we chose to put the classrooms down there.
Patty, did you have something?
I do. Jamie, I have a question regarding the 5.5 million to build 8 classrooms. If we say only built 4 classrooms, do they prorate that amount? Do we not get the entire amount? How does that work?
Yeah, so what they would do is for the 4, if you reduced it, then that would reduce the state share and the district share. That's an interesting question. Actually, I hadn't thought about that. I wonder if you would potentially lose it depends on what the state share is. I'd have to run the calculations because the way that you have to have at least $1 of need for financial hardship to be awarded those 40 priority points. So we'd have to reduce it just enough that you still had at least $1 of need. And I think you had around $2 million in cash on hand. So you might be able to reduce it to 4 to 6 classrooms. I'd have to run that number and get it back to you.
Okay, thank you.
And so these 8, they're a mix of TK-K right now, is that what we're looking at?
They're the same exact classroom. They'll just be labeled classroom. They can be used for either TK or K. So you qualify for 4 TK and 4 kinder, but the state understands that your enrollments are going to change, right? You might initially use them, or eventually, or permanently use them. 6 of them is kinder and 2 is TK. They understand that. That's really just how you qualify. But the building standards for all those spaces are the same.
I just had a question. Is it possible to build TK on like this site and then keep kinder at Jefferson? I mean, is that an option in terms of the money and?
I think, anything's an option until the state says no. So I think if we wanted to ask the state, would it be possible to build 4 TK here and 4 kinder at Jefferson? I could certainly ask them. I mean, I think the Title V, I would defer to Kevin, but they're still going to want to see, something like a multipurpose and food service and all those ancillary facilities that go along with serving those students. So I don't know how much that would increase your cost to have those projects split between 2 sites, but everything's an option, and I am happy to ask the state whatever questions you might have.
Yeah, I was gonna throw out, this site could be designed for 6 TK classrooms. And it could also potentially, we could put district administration upstairs there. Because we've got approximately 400 homes that have been approved and are under construction. So at 1 to 2 kids per home, we're gonna need 6 TK and 6K classrooms within a couple years.
And I think Jamie had said the reason she went for the max was because you want to go for the max and see if you qualify. And for me,
Well, I think that it would be good to have Rob come in, because he actually ran your enrollment projections, which are real, rather than, the calculation for eligibility, the way the state does your eligibility isn't always necessarily realistic. But I mean, I think the question that you're getting at is, do we have a need for 8 classrooms to serve TK and K over the next 5 to 10 years? So I can pull up your, and I didn't mean to interrupt, sorry, but I can pull up your.
I was just gonna say, my concern would be, say we only decided to do 4, but then in 5 years, our need is actually for 8, then where are we gonna come up with the funding at that time?
Exactly. Right.
And if I can mention, the TK ratio will drop. I mean, we're holding steady at 1 to 12. We were supposed to move to 1 to 10, but the funding hasn't been there with the need for teachers. But they're still projecting that by 2025 that they want to drop the ratio to 1 to 10, which is a max of 20 in a classroom. So when you're talking about 100 TKers, that's really 5 classrooms when we drop the ratio. So I would encourage the larger number of classrooms, because we don't know what's going to happen.
But you could go 2 to 20 also in one classroom.
Yes, but their numbers of, 8 classrooms is really based on 25 fitting in a classroom. And right now, we're only allowed 24 in a classroom.
Right.
And then in 2 years, it'll be only 20 in a classroom. So we're already, that number
Right.
is going down from their original calculation.
So
So we're seeing that this is everybody.
Hi.
Rob.
Gabby
you wanna
had a
speak
quick
to-
question.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're seeing here is the moderate enrollment projection we ran, taking into account last year's enrollments that we had.
The development.
And the development. Yep, but this is obviously you're about to get your 23-24, so we can update all this once you see where you land this fall. But what we're seeing here is based on the growth you saw in TK in the first year of expansion, and then kind of correlating that to births, knowing that you have some higher birth years that were coming up. That's where you see by 25-26 at full implementation of TK, between TK and kindergarten, you're going to have a total need of almost 200 students for a couple of years in there, and then it will really just depend on just keeping an eye on how many births you have in your community as we move forward.
Development.
continuing to add more kids in there.
So 200 would be kind of like all things that are happening now happen,
Yeah.
and nothing new comes online.
Correct.
And we're about stable as we expect them to. But, you know, so you're projected to be right at that 200, but then, you know, as you know, development's happening, affordable housing is happening, and,
Right.
You know,
Yeah, I mean-
rents were on the increase,
So does this number include the 400 units that are gonna be coming online?
It should, yes. Because that's.
Here, let's
there-
look here, I can just share my
Yeah,
screen
it's
again.
like- yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
I don't know why I closed that.
Yeah, so we've got, you know, all the various, because different kinds of housing generate students at different rates, and in Baumgartner, you've got all the kinds of housing we look at, all in one project, we've got those broken out. And then we have the new affordable projects, there's, the one specific one that was already built, we know, just acknowledging the possibility from the city's general plan of that being a focus area and the station area downtown, and then one other project that had an approved map that was probably gonna be, I think Vista Oaks is not the reason that we're having these meetings, but it's in there. But yeah, Baumgartner's the big one, and then if there's anything else that and then we have some other ones, that you see listed below there that aren't highlighted in yellow, that we see that they're on the map, but we don't anticipate them building during the period that we're looking at.
And when your enrollments come in the
Yeah.
fall, well, in a month, I can't believe it's already fall, but
Yeah.
Rob will take your enrollments, he'll compare them to the moderate projection, he'll run a new student generation rate
Yeah.
to see, are we getting the kids that we expect by that rate out of those types of units, and then we'll adjust the projection, if need be, or not, if you're tracking right where we think you are. Any questions
Okay.
about the projection?
Yeah, I think we have some questions coming here. Hold on a second.
So, Jamie, just so that I'm understanding this correctly, if we decide, or let's look at JEH, there's currently no multi-purpose room at JEH. So let's say if we say, like, okay, our vision is to house TK Kinder at JEH, we would also need to think about adding a multi-purpose room and a cafeteria to be able to feed them. Is that correct? Did I understand that correctly?
I mean, I think, yes, the CDE is gonna wanna know, where are they gonna participate in group activities? Where are they gonna eat lunch? Where are they gonna practice physical education? It's not out of the realm of possibility, but, and at early childhood education in Lemon Grove, they're putting down a modular MP room, so there's that opportunity as well. Modular companies don't only make classrooms. And it could probably be small based on if there was only 6 to 8 classrooms, it could be, a fairly small MP room. But yes, CDE, so this is exactly why you'd want to bring CDE in early to determine what are our opportunities from a design perspective, because we need your approval to do this project and to get these funds.
And I would say on top of that, I think anytime you're going to think about it, anytime you're going to create a new site with kind of a bunch of kids, you're going to have admin there too, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to create potentially another job you might have to hire as well.
But you would have those students that would bring.
Say again?
You would have the students that would bring in the funding to help fund those positions.
Increased ADA.
Increased ADA.
Understood,
But
right.
what I was gonna say is, yeah, you would have the
Not that.
Potentially,
you would have the multi-purpose room. You wouldn't maybe necessarily have to build a cafeteria in it, because you could use a different site's cafeteria and just have someone transport the food. I know other districts do that. Is it ideal? No, but that could be an option if there wasn't
Right.
room for.
but another question would be for the JEH is we've got tenants there right now. So, right, what does it look like for the, contract we've got with them and stuff like that too? And, how accessible is that? Again, we're talking about now, right? So I don't know if we've looked into that or, what that looks like as far as that goes. I understand the prospect of we're replacing fewer kids, right, when we replace the JEH part as far as the part. But the JE, I just don't know what Head Start, what these other, because when I go over there, they're still even there now in the summertime, what kind of contracts and stuff we have with them as well. And I don't know if anybody could speak to that, but
Well, and I think what might be helpful to your points to talking about administration and that is that, you know, I work closely with Jennifer Gibb at Van Pelt, and we've done this for other clients, is to look at, you know, what your operational costs would be. So aside just from staff, you're gonna have other, you know, maintenance and operational costs
Right.
just to open the doors and keep the lights on at the site. And then from a site development perspective, you know, I think Jennifer could probably help to run some different cost estimates for the different options that you have for solutions. I mean, I think initially I need to do my due diligence and find out if you are even able to move the project initially, and then maybe some cost estimating would be helpful as well, because you are in a really tight budget for the project.
And as of right now, our application says Jefferson, is that correct?
Correct.
Right.
And we would have to build the multipurpose facility at Jefferson as well, right?
You have a multipurpose facility at Jefferson already.
I thought you said it had to be separate.
No, the multipurpose room doesn't have to be separate. No.
Yeah,
But
like-
if you have, the
So-
multipurpose room does not need to be separate at all. The ancillary facilities at Jefferson can support the classrooms that you're
Okay, so-
requesting at that site. If you move it to a new site that doesn't have a multipurpose room, then you're gonna have to provide that ancillary facility for
So
those students.
TK can use the same cafeteria as fourth grade?
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
I thought.
If
that
they
was-
need they need a separate playground. I apologize if I miscommunicated. They do need their own separate fenced-in play area. And CDE prefers a separate pickup drop-off, but again, we can work around that.
Does
Yeah,
the
so
distance-
Field is for a lot of people.
Right.
Does the distance of the multipurpose room to the TK kinder classrooms, is there a requirement for that? Because where the classrooms are being proposed, the multipurpose room is on the other side of this site. So is that a concern that the classrooms are the furthest away from that?
I don't think so. I mean, again, CDE, what they would like to see, what's ideal is not always what can happen. I mean, as long as there is a multipurpose room, if we give them an operational solution, like the kids will be escorted to the multipurpose room, or in inclement weather, they will eat in the classroom, then that could potentially be enough to satisfy that Title V requirement.
And that's currently where they're at right now.
Yeah.
The current.
Permanent buildings were meant to be permanent, and so they understand site constraints very well. And, you know, we support districts with these projects on tiny 3-acre sites in the middle of highly built up urban areas. So obviously, like, you have some challenges, but I think they're all able to be
Yeah.
worked around.
So I have a question on the 2-story building, the bottom classrooms that were currently built, are those Title V for the bottom floor?
They don't include that.
No bathrooms.
No bathrooms in them. And I don't think they're that big.
They're not.
They're not that big.
Jamie, would creating that one-way drop-off that we talked about at the extreme end of the field, would that change, does that change anything for CDE's perspective, or does that increase the
I
likely?
think they would love a
Okay.
separate drop off and pick up for the little kids if you're able to fit it in there. I don't
Right.
know. I mean, it looks from the size of the car and the width of that, it looks like it's very reasonable to be able to do that back there. And I think that would.
Right. And Preston, your thought would be is that would be kind of a one-way drop-off, kind of a snake through drop-off type of thing?
To do like a U-shaped drop off, right?
No, I think all the way through, like a straight pull-through from these two cars, basically all the way over to that empty area there, which looks like a driveway.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
enter up there and you exit at the other side.
Oh, God. Okay, yeah. The one when you drop off, that would work. Do you
Then right
have,
back out.
do you bus students to this site?
Yes.
Yes.
The bus drop-off is at the
And where's
bottom.
The opposite side.
Where's
It's
the?
down,
No.
South
no,
of the
down,
new
down,
building.
down, over Kathleen.
Over
To
by
the
the new
left.
building.
Right in
Right
there,
there.
yeah.
Uh-oh. My internet's going out.
So just a question, if you did put that road behind there, it's gonna, if it does move everything up, just consider how much play area you have for the rest of your school. That's one thing I'm looking at there. And then also, that would have to be closed off at a certain time, right? Because we can't have cars driving back there all day long, right?
Correct.
Just,
I would
okay.
assume so, yeah.
During school hours.
Office, yeah.
So if
So
I
we-
can just make a quick point, Superintendent, yeah? Be careful, we're starting to spend all your money on utilities and site work. You'll have no classrooms if you keep going like this.
At JEH
You need-
or?
Both. You're gonna have playgrounds, like you say, multi-purpose, talking about office. It's, the site work could, 30%, 40%, you end up with 4 classrooms left, but you got a nice road and a nice playground. Right, because the city, the DSA's just not gonna let you put a gravel road down that fence. It's gonna look like Jefferson out here, right? Curbs, underground utilities, fencing, et cetera, to the point, should you spend the money now or wait? Escalation, cost of materials, construction, labor cost. My advice is, you've got the money, build as much as you can now, right? Obviously, we're gonna study it with the architects, et cetera, but I would say select your 2 or 3 sites and then let the architect program them for you in the next few weeks and give you an idea of costs, et cetera.
I mean, I definitely am leaning that diagram right there for me, is what I,
Well,
Would
all the
prefer
money's
less, but-
approved for that site, so you wouldn't have to go to CDE. However, does that meet the board's intent, looking at all the sites, like JEH, et cetera?
So really the question with this model would just be where would we house them while construction's happening? But I'm with you, Ashley. Like, I like this plan. I'm preferring it over JEH for this site at least.
So yeah, this one though, where would you house them? And then where are you, this isn't showing where all those classrooms that are already filled, like the SDE, the teacher workroom,
Right.
all of that kind of stuff, and the preschool, mind you. It's not showing where any of those are gonna go after. It's just showing the new builds.
Yeah, I guess besides the housing issue here, we also have to relocate all those classrooms that are being used by the
Yeah.
district. Whereas JEH, we only have to relocate 1 district classroom.
so what is the time, like, looking at construction, what is the probability of being able to get it all done over a summer break?
Over
Or
what, I'm sorry?
over like a summer
I'm
break,
talking
if
like,
they're
what do
modulars
we actually
going
use?
in?
Yeah.
No?
So on a
What's
break-
our construction timeline looking like if we were to go with what you proposed?
What are you building?
If we're,
Are you building all
Which?
8 at this site?
yeah, like, let's just say this right here is what we're looking at. What would the projected construction time be? What would our estimate on how long we would have to temporarily house students somewhere else?
Could you do it in a summer jam?
That's what I asked, you said
No.
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 Wishful thinking.
No,
No, it's just, this is
it's a year.
It's a 6-month to 9-month project, and 6 months plus design as well, and then DSA.
So
You'll
we'd
think.
have construction going on during school.
Absolutely would have to have construction.
I'm talking about once
I
the
think the
construction
actual,
time starts.
yeah, actual time when kids gotta be out before
Yeah.
they can come back in again.
Well, you only have a couple of open times, right?
Yeah, that's why I'm asking,
You
how
have
long,
if they're out for summer, right, you've got to move them for that term up to Christmas, right? So they're going to be out at least 4 or 5 months.
so we'll have to do temporary housing.
And so, I guess
Well,
my other
you-
question.
You're gonna have to find a place to relocate all those kids.
So I guess my other question, when we're talking about relocating kids,
Yeah.
before our fourth graders were at Washington, would it be easier to relocate fourth graders for temporarily rather than our youngest kids?
You should look at all those opportunities that makes it easy for
So-
the district.
Part of the problem with that, because we did talk about it
We talked about
briefly,
that at Measure H.
the other kids can't go upstairs.
Third grade can, right?
No.
I don't
We,
think so.
we do have 3 available classrooms right now in our main buildings.
Okay.
And we also have 3, when we look at this model, there are potentially 3 portables that will not be demolished to be replaced.
Right away.
And I don't know if it will fit into this. So I guess my point is that
Strategic.
it's possible that we could take a look at the feasibility, because we do have some room right now, before we have that conversation of making massive shifts. And it would be for our TK students, because our K students are already housed in our permanent home.
And third and fourth can be upstairs, correct?
Third and fourth would be
Yeah.
Reminder, there's 10 portable classrooms there.
11.
Well, with the preschool, 11. So could we demo preschool number 15 through 18 or whatever, that, the first row till you get to the bottom of the hill, and you would still have 4 or 5 classrooms to house students.
Yeah, we have 3.
Three.
Yeah.
Unless you-
Unless you talked about shifting that whole plan down, then that would change everything.
To make the drive.
Yeah.
Or just shift it all the way over to the fence so that you're leaving like the preschool area as is and not demolishing those spaces. Yeah, because we were trying to
So-
count up like how many spaces are you demolishing to get, like are we actually losing space?
We'll just shift it.
Yeah.
Just shifting everything.
I think we should move that way.
Yes, because then you would still have the preschool space, potentially another classroom.
Jamie,
in
could you
addition
pull
to
up that other drawing, please?
It would,
Scenario.
Yeah. You could have everything in operation with this plan.
Except soccer.
Except for a softball, little league field.
Hey,
What I don't like about it is you're taking up room, right? Playground room, stuff like that too, right? So I think what we were talking about was more kind of like morphing 1 and 2, right? Where you're moving things over towards the, I'll say it past the outfield, let's just use that for that. And then running it more of a long linear across kind of the back area, but not quite as far down to where the 2 little cameras are showing there, right? So yeah, starting there and running it that way and then leave that part open, basically, right? Is what I think what we were talking about.
In a perfect world, this makes best use of that site and takes space that's not used the majority of the time by the school and uses it. But
be the most
the-
cost effective
the
too,
community, I don't think
right?
No.
wants that. But, yeah, it should be talked about.
so one of the things that I'm thinking is if we move all of the classrooms over, and those are TK Kinder, I would think that we would still need, it would be in our best interest, if we're thinking about our students getting lunch, to still be, like, there's an MPR room right there, to think about how could we also bring that, because they're gonna be walking, like, that's
They're the
for littles,
littlest walking
the
the
4-year-old little, like, and then they're fall, or, well, it happens sometimes that mine falls, or their lunch, falls on the ground, they have a long walk to the MPR, and just trying to also think if we're gonna house them and build permanent classrooms all the way out there, how are we going to be able to also provide them like an MPR and have them like,
This one looks at it like it's 2 sites, because you'll see there's a separate admin building. So this one's looking at it as if there were 2 sites, and I remember that when it was presented to us before.
I know I see a couple people that weren't here when we started. If you guys have any comments on this, I'll invite you up.
Sorry, for the record, I'm Todd Lands. I you guys know me. So anyways, I know this is a facility master plan meeting mostly. So I'm here, I love the ideas, but the deal is this isn't realistic. You have now money, and you have about 6 to 8 million. This is 20 to 40. You have no bonding capacity left, or very minimal. So if you want to do something that's realistic, your only option at this point is the JEH site. This is wonderful. We talk about these, we love them. And we did this at the last master plan set up in 2014, is the big picture. But you can't do big picture with this money, and you don't have no bonding capacity. So keep that in mind. If you want this project to happen, you're going to have to think realistic, which is JEH, maximum 4 classrooms at this point, and maybe your multi-purpose room. You really got to really think about this. I mean, Preston knows. I'm speaking to the choir with him, but those that haven't been part of this, think about that too.
Anyone else?
And just, Brandon Axel, and just coming into this, I know, we've come into some now money, and over the years with the master plan, the last, 8 years that we've been doing all of these different ideas, and this is what needs to happen. And we've been working hard, especially, the community fallout, we keep coming back to the field, right? That's just death to you guys. I mean, so and we've been trying to, over the years, say, hey, the site needs to be used for something else, and trying to plan an off-site athletics. And that's, of course, even when I was here, been pouring a lot of money into that preparation, along with all these other projects, because everything is needed, but we can't do everything. So maybe it just, like Todd had said, just need to size down the grand plan, because that needs to happen, but it maybe just realistically can't happen, and to just size it down, because you're gonna have I know there's a lot of money on the table, and that's great, but it's gonna go quick for all the projects that need to happen, and to just really think it out kind of down the road and like the bonding capacity is done. But Jamie has come into a lot of money for the district, and it's great. But I think just the site, unless you have an alternative for one little field and it's done somewhere else, and that's gonna be a lot of money too, but that site, you need to use it the best you can, but taking that field away is, at this point, hard to do. And you guys know that. So unless we have an alternative and you're gonna put some money into fields and then do what you want on that site, I think you need to kind of do that. But everyone's heard all this for years, so you guys know what you're doing. So.
If this is everybody's final term, we can put it on the field.
I do have a follow-up question. When we're talking about TK, and it might be more of a Patty question, so you probably know more about this. So right now, we don't get ADA funding for TK kids until they turn 5, correct? Or how does that work? Or is California going to change how they fund this, since they're mandating everyone to do TK, to have TK?
TK funding is a set birthday window, if you will. So we do get 4-year-old TK dollars for the children that are within the window. It is the children who are outside the window that we do not get funding for. Those we get funding for when they turn 5 within the year. So now there's a new early that has a tighter ratio of 1 to 10, that, which are the June 2nd, June 3rd through September 2nd of that following year.
Okay.
So we're kind of working with 3 different groups, if you will, but Cloverdale has allowed the early enrollees to come in.
Okay.
So when we talk of, and the state may will broaden within each year. They're adding kind of a few more months to it. So we'll eventually be at a 4-year-old entire group, but that won't be until 25, 26?
So for this year, 23, 24, we are legally required to accept children that will turn 5 by April 2nd, and we get funded for those. That's called the fully funded TKers. Then we have the expanded TKers, which, and this just came out in the last 2 weeks, by the way, which is April 2nd to June 2nd for this coming year, that once they turn 5, we can get funded for. And then there's the early TKers, which is June 2nd to September 1st. And they have a different ratio. They have a requirement of 1 to 10, max of 20 in a classroom, so 2 to 20. And we have already accepted some kids in that range because we have the room. We are moving to 3 TK classrooms this year. So we are placing them in one classroom because if we spread them out, then our ratio drops for all classrooms. 24, 25, the dates move. So we will be required to accept everybody up to June 2nd that turns 5 by June 2nd, and we get funded for all those kids. And that little window of June 2nd to September 1st won't be funded for. And then the following year, it's all the way to September 1st, and we get funded for everybody. So most districts have moved to just accepting those earlies if they have room, and accelerating, basically. But we are not required to accelerate because of the funding issue and the teacher ratios and all that.
Thank you. Yeah. Clear as mud, got it. I actually followed along with that.
Yeah, I think we just have to, we got challenges, we got resources. I think we need to look at this in a master plan sense. Like, we have to understand, I wasn't here for everything that Jamie went through, but there's other dollars coming through in the future. And this process is going to continue into the future. So what is our master plan that we're building towards? And then how do we use these dollars most effectively to get us to that ultimate goal? We're not going to build it out in an ideal way because that's not possible, but we do have the capacity to think about what is this going to look like in 10 years? And not just drop something somewhere that doesn't make sense. So have a plan going forward. And to that end, continuing moving the South property forward and what things realistically can we do there? Fields, maintenance and transportation, ag, things like that are easier to do down there. And with the timelines, and that takes other pressures off our sites, and then just deciding where these classrooms go most appropriately for now. And I think we do have to build the 8 because we have basically $6 million, $6 to $7 million. If we build 6, that fund's just shrunk, so it doesn't help solve any of those infrastructure needs. By building fewer classrooms, we just won't get that money.
I have a question for Jamie. If you go to your funding application sheet, it listed all the different ones that talked about the different sites that are eligible for them. If we do build this TK Kinder at the JEH site, which we'll have to come up with a new name for that, can anything that was specifically earmarked for Jefferson or Washington be transferred over there maybe Jefferson only, since we're moving Kinder and TK from that site to this new site? Or can they still only be used at that specific site?
No, so the eligibility at Jefferson, what you have remaining after your applications are online, this 1.1 and then this other 2.6 that will become available in May of 2025, that can only ever be used at the Jefferson campus right now. You can't move modernization eligibility from one campus to another because it's generated by the age of the buildings at that site.
Okay.
So that can't be moved. This funding that you're going to get back, so even if you say you don't do the UTK project, over the next 2 years you're going to get over $10 million back roughly. That money, when you get it back, you've already spent the district and your share with bond money. So you can spend that $10 million. You can allocate it all to the South Fields. You can spend it all at Washington. You can spend it all. You can spread it out. You can build a new district office. As long as it's spent on capital facilities, that money, that 10 million over the next 2 years is gonna be coming back into your Fund 35, which is your state fund account. And the only requirement is that you spend it on capital facilities. So you won't be able to spend it on operational costs,
Okay.
hiring staff, materials, et cetera. It'll have to be spent on capital facilities. So certainly when you're talking, Preston, about strategically planning this facility master plan, that's something that you want to keep in mind, that you're not only working with your cash on hand now and this UTK opportunity, but you should be planning for how are we going to allocate those funds when they come back to us over the next 2 years. Is that a long answer to your short question?
Yes.
So my question, though, to the couple of public comments is that, and Todd, to your question, is what do you mean, clarify to help me, what do you mean by, you mentioned 4, right? So what are your concerns that you have with, because maybe I'm not understanding it right. My understanding is if we do this, the 8, right, we get a certain level of funding that, from what Kevin is saying, would cover to be able to do that. And so if we were to build less, we would get less funds to be able to get that because it's going to cost less. So I guess what are some of your concerns that you had brought up to go?
Your money won't cover, they're oversized classrooms, so they're approximately 2 million apiece, right? Or less?
Yeah.
We talked last week that they were,
Well, we're looking at modulars, not
okay.
not
And you can
permanent,
have them in-
unfortunately.
Okay, so then maybe more than 4.
Gotcha.
You still also have to have.
But your
a little
concern
bit-
is that the amount of money wouldn't cover the number of.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
That's- Yep.
Appreciate that.
Todd, I had to compromise my ethics of stick-built buildings for modular to get it in the budget.
But when we talked last week, we were talking around a 2 million mark per classroom average for that size.
Yeah, 8 doesn't fit into that.
No.
Right, okay, thank you.
And so that's where that number came from when we talked about it last week, was exactly that.
In 40 years, another board will be cursing the modules, but everybody will be gone.
But I'll be dead.
But they'll last longer than the portables, so.
Okay.
Just still even like with this, if you tried this, your rehousing and your road utilities are going to take up 10+ million by itself. You have all those laterals for the sewer, you have to do curb and gutter, you have to do drainage. It's going to eat up 10+ million on that. And I apologize if I'm speaking out of turn.
No, you're not. No, it's just that, I was just saying.
I have to leave with a 6th grade orientation. I'll be back.
I mean, for me, I believe the reason we brought this to the board is the Measure H committee, we need to move forward and make decisions, so the board needs to be behind it and kind of seeing where everybody is at, so that way, when we do have to vote on it, if there was any questions and stuff. I know we already said that, but.
Yeah, we wanted everybody to see where all this is at.
We started out with the 3 options, Jefferson, JEH, and the Southfields, and the committee had kind of decided that the Southfields, while it would be ideal, it's not ideal for the timeline that we have. So then we brought these other 2. I know that some trustees have said Jefferson is their preference. For me, JEH is my preference. It's least disruptive with having to house students. And I just like the schematics of it, the possibility of building the district, the DO on top. And we would have potential funding with other things coming in. I know somebody brought up, and while I'm not in favor of it, but it's just something to consider, we talked about a loan. Because we need to consider all options. I'm not a fan of that, but that is something that the board should be aware of and take into consideration.
Yeah, I had mentioned that because looking at the spreadsheet that Jamie shared, where we've got next year another 1.6 coming, and then 8 something coming, you can get a bridge loan and then pay that off when those funds come in. So, you know, if we did something that required more infrastructure, that's one way to manage the cost, because the cost is going to be more.
Well, we anticipate that 1.5 million for the multipurpose room, I think it was at Washington, to be in your bank next year, mid-year. So that's another 1.5 million to add to it. I just contacted OPSC. I think for me, the next steps, because it sounds like you need some more information, is to find out if a relocation to JEH is even feasible, if they will even allow it. So I just shot off an email while we were sitting here to OPSC because I want to get you answers as quickly as possible about, number one, is a relocation acceptable? Would it require an appeal, or is it something that OPSC can do administratively? And then two, if you reduce, how does that, what could you reduce to without it impacting the priority points you received for financial hardship? So I'm hoping to have those before we're done meeting, but it might be later today, at which time I can let the district know and they can share the information.
Well, and just a clarification for me, since I'm new, is that I'm assuming that the Measure H committee is a subcommittee of the board, right? So the board ultimately makes the decision and direction. So I just want to, so I think it's important that the board understand that I think the committee is a great idea that brings, that kind of hashes these things out and then brings some different scenarios to the board. But the board ultimately is the one, the decider of what's going on. Even though I know we have 2 board members that are on the committee, ultimately the board makes the call. I just felt it was important just to say that, that we have that. So, but this is all, as far as I'm concerned, this is great. This is the kind of discussion you want to have. Like I said, we don't want to have this discussion and then be like, okay, now we're going to vote, type of thing. So I think these are good questions to be able to bring that up and stuff too. So go ahead.
No, definitely. And one of the things that I appreciate from the public comment was getting us to think about, I heard Jamie state, we want to make sure that our programs, the programs are our focus and our facilities are being able to meet our programs. And I'm not sure how much thought or where we're at with us discussing what is the vision of the programs that we would like to offer at Cloverdale Unified School District and make sure that we are moving in that direction. And so how do we, and that might be our next item of discussion, where it's like, how do we thoughtfully think about the programs and looking at what we're trying to house and what we're trying to create and maximizing the dollars that we have to move in that direction. With that said, Jenny?
Oh, no, I'm good for right now.
I do have one more question for Jamie. So say JEH is where we decided, and that's the TK Kinder, or even if it was at Jefferson, and we build these TK Kinder classrooms. In 10 years, if we felt the need to have that be a 5th, 6th grade site, could you have a different grade level in that, or this is you can only have TK Kinder there?
No, your needs and programs will change as time moves on. You're absolutely not required to, for the end of time, use these as TK and K classrooms. In fact, some districts are looking not just at Title V, but I believe it's Title 20 for pre-K requirements for those spaces because, as early childhood education becomes increasingly more important and increasingly more a priority. Districts are wanting to make sure that, they could serve even smaller students in the future. So, but no, if you 10 years from now, if you decided that you needed to use those rooms for SDC kids or, special education or a higher grade level, that there's no impact to your funding for the construction of those spaces.
Okay.
How was, just another question, just because I'm an outsider, but how, I guess, because a lot what we do is a perception, right? And what the community thinks and stuff like that too. A couple questions, and this would be for board members as well as the community members. Number one, how would parents feel and everybody feel about dropping their TK kids off to a different site or a site that's associated with the high school, let's face it, right? And then number two would be is how well received is it going to be that we're basically moving JEH and moving those students and that population of kids, and then also how is the community going to feel about us moving Head Start and booting them out and moving all that stuff and everything too. So that's kind of a question that I'm wondering how we feel that would play out.
Would anybody like to start? We're all looking at each other.
Yeah,
Brett.
I think that we've talked about even, 2-3 years ago on the JEH issue was how those kids would feel just so much more empowered to be a true part of this campus. And that was mulled over a lot because that site's been really discussed on multiple uses over the years, is just the mental, positivity for those kids who are in that program. If it's here to be part of, hey, I'm at the high school. So that's one little plus that could occur with that happening for those kids.
So the idea would be to move them to this campus, essentially, would be the.
They would still have their own.
No, I know, but to house them on this campus
Yeah.
would be, right,
And
got it.
one of the reasons that we thought about that is that the counselor also does a lot of work with our students with JH, so they're still being served, and it would make most sense if we're all included in a much shorter
Logistically.
walk of fame.
Right.
Where it would just, I think it would be an addition to be able to provide services and have them be part of the community.
In regards to TK and the K, I think it's its own cohort, so you're not having these TKers with
Fourth
fourth
graders.
graders. It's just a smaller grade level that they're still having. So for me, I would like that, I guess. I would be open to that instead of having them on the larger campus.
Right.
And one downside I think we'll hear for Jefferson, and I'm not sure where I would go on my decision yet, but traffic there is always an issue. So we have to add these classrooms somewhere, but we're adding to an already really difficult drop-off location there versus if it were its own separate place. We'll create a new traffic issue that doesn't exist, but it won't be the same amount as adding to what's already problematic here. I think the JEH site could be a great early childhood education facility. It could be a total crown jewel that people want to bring their kids. They've got, their first 2 years, they're in this protective environment. It could be really good.
Use all the classrooms to begin with, we could still do pre-K, Head Start or something,
That would be the next question, is how does it look to potentially evict or, Head Start?
I think we discussed that at the Measure Age Committee, and I think that someone was looking into what is the contract or the agreement with them look like.
That was a Migranet one, I believe, and Patty found some stuff in there about funding and stuff that might.
So the front Head Start building is a month-to-month rental with the Sonoma County Head Start. The two rear buildings at JEH were migrant Head Start, and there's an agreement that I believe was shared with the superintendent to review, but we should probably have legal take a look at it before, if we're considering that site. It was a 25-year lease, but it also stated that it was federal migrant dollars that paid for those buildings to be installed along with the playgrounds. They're not being utilized for that now. It's a 4Cs program that they rent the buildings to. So I don't know, we'd have to pursue it.
And isn't there a 90-day something, you could sever the contract in 90 days or something to that effect also?
Right, it would have to be reviewed by legal to
No,
determine.
I think it's possible. I'm just
It is
talking about
very-
more the perception.
Also.
Well, we might save a life getting them out of there before that building falls down on
Well,
them.
that could, right.
Um,
But some
but-
people hang on to programs, right, and are
Yeah.
like, oh my God, they destroyed the one program that I liked, or, again, I wouldn't know that, right? But I agree with you, because, most of you have seen JEH. It's not our shining star necessarily, right, as far as facilities go. So I agree there. I'm just saying, I just don't know what the community feels like with those two things that are going on at that
Is
front
there
and back.
potential to house it? We have
Again, I don't
empty
know.
buildings
Right.
right now
Right.
at Jefferson. I don't know if that's a potential site or if there's restrictions that they can't be there. I think if we can have JEH, which is high school level, with those programs, why would there be an issue moving it to this site? And these would be better buildings.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of, though, just that it's kind of popped in my head, is if, for a continuation school, since we're mandated to have that, I'm not sure if it has to have its own address. I don't think it can exist on the same campus. But it doesn't mean we can't change the address and use School Street as opposed to something else. You know, there's always ways to do that. I would just need to check on that part. But I don't think it's that difficult to be able to do that. But I know there is something, it has to be a separate quote-unquote campus for that, just because of the ed code around that. But I need to look into that a little bit more. But
Would they be able to move into the district office and the district office move into the kinder?
Can't put kids in there.
JH? Oh,
it wouldn't be a Field Act building, I'm sure, yeah.
no kids in the district office.
I really want to put us in there.
You could
Although
put
it's not as bad as
JH
How
special
about
ed.
You could put
adults?
JH in here while we build their new facility over there with the upcoming dollars.
And you still have the 3 portables at the field as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right, we have.
Does-
I would even say if any of the portables are salvageable, it might behoove us to add them and have them as additional rooms. It would be nice if boosters could have their own facility and they could have their meetings in there and store any of their extra things in there as a thought process looking forward. Not that portables are our favorite building, but an option.
But we can put admin in them for decades.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
teach in one, and
Keep
it's
it on wheels,
glorified
too, just in
cardboard
case.
box.
Put it on the hitch. Okay.
I was gonna say, I've got to get going in about 5 minutes, just to give a heads up.
I guess
Any-
my question would be, Kevin, after hearing all that, are you still comfortable with the 8 being able to be built with the dollars that are there without using any additional than what we're talking about with this particular project?
Depends on your site. Are you going JEH for sure?
Well, then, okay, so I would say, what is your recommendation on that?
You would spend a lot more on utilities at Jefferson, for sure, site utilities. Yeah. I think you have enough money. We're smart about it.
For either?
Yeah.
Okay.
But there would be,
No roads.
yeah, that would be, yeah. You just look at what we built at the drop-off at Jefferson.
Washington.
I'm sorry. No,
Washington.
Jefferson. Look at the drop-off, the road what we built.
Oh,
On North
behind the
Florida,
classroom.
like bus
Yeah.
drop
Oh,
down.
okay, okay.
Look how intense that
Yeah.
is, the curb heights and everything we had to do down there. And then dealing with the city and encroachment permits and, I mean, if it was just as easy just to add to the gravel road and go would be fine, right? But they're not
Chip
gonna
seal.
let us do that. Yeah, and JH is one singular site, and it'd be easy to get your hands around demoing all that, you know, cording it off and just letting your contractor go at it.
So that would be your recommendation, is the JEH site, just because of I'm not pinning you, I'm just saying, that would be because of the flexibility of it, right?
Not pinning you, we just want to record what you say.
Yeah, yeah. As a consultant.
Could you speak into this phone for me, please? No.
Jamie, help. Jamie, what do I say? Take the 5th? I think it would be a much easier build, and less disrupted, obviously, right? Because we start at Jefferson, and you've got to move all those kids. And,
Any worry about JEH with the creek being right there and having a problem there?
well, we just built the football field right there along the creek, so we know all the agencies that you've got to deal with. So that creek's a little deeper down that end, but we've still got we've got that big pond that we dig. Yeah, no, we'll be okay.
What are the two, not the parking lot side where the classrooms are, the white, that gray rooftop and the white rooftop? What are those buildings that are staying?
That's the migrant, I think, that Patty's talking about. That's the migrant.
So those would potentially disappear?
Yeah, I was down
The
there.
whole
this-
thing would
yeah,
disappear.
Well,
looking
I'm
at
just
those.
wondering, because there isn't a multipurpose room on this site, could where the White Top building be 2 additional classrooms, and then where the 2 classrooms are by the parking lot be a multipurpose room?
The site is open to everything and anything you want.
But I don't, but according to Jamie, though, I don't know that you can use these dollars to be able to upgrade or change what that middle gray building is with
No,
these
wouldn't we
dollars.
just tear it down?
But we
That's what- okay.
can bulldoze it with these dollars.
Right, okay. I thought you meant like create those into classrooms. You're talking about tear it down.
I'm
Gotcha.
saying remove them and
Gotcha.
put something new there instead of using.
Gotcha.
But then what would be the price of then having 8 classrooms on top of us then having to build a multipurpose room?
That was,
That is my only concern actually with JH. And also from a parent perspective, I like the idea going to your, town kind of perception of moving it. I personally like the idea of there being like just their own little cohort. Just personally, because I would love it that, I already love it that she's not on campus anymore with 5th and 6th graders now that she's going to be at Jefferson for kinder. So the idea of having their own little separate world, my only concern with JEH is the amount of money that it'll cost. Whenever we have to build the multipurpose room and kind of figure that out, that would be my only concern with this now. Because I'm totally getting swayed to JEH versus Jefferson, to be honest, at this moment. So that would be my only thing, would be the money.
Do they make pre-fab multipurpose rooms, like the modulars?
the mod,
Yes.
And I trust the construction people. I just want to make sure we're not overspending and then we're stuck with,
So would the idea then be, and correct me if I'm not hearing this wrong, or not hearing it right, would be to create, if we did the JEH, I'm just going to say that, would be to create this, right? And then with some of the dollars that we've got coming in, then put in a multipurpose room? Or does the multipurpose room, maybe Jamie, have to be there under before the kids can be housed there? How does that work?
Yeah.
Timing
I
wise?
think you can phase it. I mean, this is a conversation that we would want to have with the California Department of Education and just ask them, if you had solutions initially for physical education and for food service. So, I know Title V requires a multipurpose room. I don't know for an early childhood education center what they're going to require or if they would allow you to phase it and have a phase 1 and a phase 2. So phase 1 is the classrooms. I know we've done that before at other campuses where they did, the phase 1 was just admin and classrooms, and then once they got enough enrolled, then later on they built their ancillary facilities. So I think it's all an opportunity. It just depends on, what we can push forward through CDE with an approval, and that's why we want to bring them in early. Like, what's the minimum we need to do here
Right.
to get this money and put these classrooms down? And is there an operational solution if we commit to building the ancillary
Right.
facility later on
Right.
down the road?
So is that kind of what our thought would be, is then take some of those dollars that we're going to be getting coming in to then use that to build or modernize, let's say, that gray room into a multipurpose room and things like that? Is that kind of what
I would say
we're thinking about?
design this, plan it out as a pre-KK dreamland. And our time frame for construction is 24, 25, right? That's what we have to meet? So-
To September 2025.
So then the 10 million is coming in 25. Like, so the money's
Right.
right there, like, even with minor bridge funding, I think the money's there to build the facility. If that's the way we go.
Kevin, is that, obviously it's easier if the people are already there to build when it's currently there with the multipurpose room, but you're thinking I'm just trying to think out loud, that if we did all the 8 classrooms and all that stuff, the way it looks right there, one year, and then the following year, we came in and also built or remodernized or however it was, for a multipurpose room, that wouldn't increase the cost that much, other than little escalation potentially that could be there, as opposed to doing it all at once.
Correct. Also, you're going to have playground structures, sunshade structures. There's another 500,000. So there's all little bits and pieces that will add to this. But I think if you just demo it all, get your architect on board, program it out as your dreamland, as you say, and then we'll price it out and we'll phase it.
Gotcha.
And if the funding, as Jamie's saying, is 2025, that might just work perfectly as a seamless
Right.
interface into that.
Right.
And you could also, I mean, if you're looking at that funding stream, you can apply it to Jefferson as well. If we had to put it, if we decided, nope, we're gonna put this road through, if that's our second phase that's coming in 2025, there's funding there to look at that site too.
And that was to the point made earlier, tie your funding durations and timelines to your program, right? That's what we need to do for the master plan.
I think Jamie will have to let us know once she gets an answer if we even qualify to move it to JEH since it was approved at
Yep.
Jefferson. So it may not be even be a possibility. So we have to wait on that before we can even.
But looking
Yeah, I
realistically
thought
at the
you're back today.
construction schedule, that funding is coming
Correct.
while we'd be under construction anyway. Whatever site we're at.
I think
I
it's,
think we have a really good argument for moving it to JEH. I don't think, I mean, even if administratively they can't do it, if it was something they needed to take to board, I think OPSC would support it. I mean, you're a one elementary school district. I see no reason. I haven't seen anything in the regulations that would preclude you from being able to relocate the project to this site. But we will see. I have my questions in, so I will let you know as soon as I know.
any,
I would just say, is that something that the board would like to direct, there's no action, but just like to be able to get that to be able to make your decision as far as if that's even a possibility.
Yeah, Jamie already said she
Yeah, so I
emailed the
think I would say,
questions,
Jamie, that I would go forward with trying to figure out if that's even, because like you said, to your point, Jackie, it might be a moot point if this,
Yeah.
if it's not even an option, so.
Yep, I've already got my question in. They might need a little more information. I might have to jump on a Zoom with the UTK team and maybe someone in policy, but, I think it's, well, I won't tell you what I think because I'm not the state and, they always surprise me. So I'll get you an answer hopefully today.
Thank you.
anyone
You're
else have any other input? I think this is really
I'm assuming
exciting.
E1 and E2 are the same.
I know, are we actually doing, my question was, are we doing anything for E2? Are we moving into E2 now? Or did we
Well, I
just
think
cover
that
it?
we-
Kind of wrapped it all together.
Yeah, but we've also talked about getting the master planning stuff going. I think somebody's been on vacation or something, right? Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, so when I look at your master plan 2016, I think it needs, obviously, a thorough scrubbing. But I think before we can go into the next phase of the master plan, the questions that are being raised here, we need to, review. And that is literally our new master plan. Right? So we're kind of starting from scratch now that Superintendent, you have joined us. And I think that's where we should go. And maybe we have more charrettes like this to talk about it as a group, because it's real hard when you only have one board meeting a month. And, we've took 2 hours here just on this alone. So if we could have these like mini charrettes, I think we could all get to a closure on an update, yeah. And everyone would be all on board.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the facilities master plan or state funding application update?
Just the Measure H committee is meeting weekly now instead of every other week. So we are meeting weekly, just so that everyone's aware of that.
Are the meetings open to the public?
Yep.
Can you provide us the time and date, or the time, weekly, just the time?
It's 10
in
a.m.
case?
every Tuesday,
10 a.m. every Tuesday. Where at?
right here.
Right, okay.
Do you still want to meet with the architects on Tuesday?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
All right.
There's no time to twiddle our thumbs.
Future agenda items, F1, master planning. F2, Alexander Valley Healthcare student concerns. F3, board policy 5111, TK and K admissions. Does anybody have any other, or would like to add to the future agenda items?
Well, I would say that this is gonna be on there too, whether or not we're gonna, what plan we're gonna go forward with. If we're gonna do it or not do it, and then where. Doing it.
And then our future board meeting is August 16th, which is a Wednesday, first day of school as well, at 6 PM here in the Makerspace.
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn at 10:51 by trustee Garrison. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in, there's no preparation.
So if I vote
preferential?
no, we don't get to adjourn.
I know, so you're gonna adjourn at 10:51. It needs to be all three of us. Preferential is not here. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? And trustee Candelaria Orr and Lopez White are absent.